All right, this is a continuation of the previous podcast and looking at personalities and some other interesting things that I think you'll find interesting. And so, when I went ahead and was in um, when I was in sales and I was promoted into sales management, the golden rule: treat other people the way you want to be treated. The thing is, Fritz, what I found out is other people don't like to be treated the way I do.
Okay, that's
So,
interesting.
so I tend to kind of be, like be direct, you know. So I like when people are direct with me. So if somebody, thinks I'm an idiot, I just, I value people who say, Mark, I just think you're an idiot. Seriously. I know it's a little weird. Social autism, but I want to hug the person because I don't know, I have this longing, this desire to be around honest people. So yeah, I don't want to hear it, but they have a reason for saying it. And if I know what they're saying, like if I know what they're thinking, I can then approach it and say, well, look at that and learn. So many people, it seems that, and so it wasn't working in management. Like I was managing people, too direct. And, the president of that company, Tony Davis, he was in the Marines. And so, Marines are pretty direct, but even he said to me, he says, Mark, he's like, you know, it's like when you're managing people, you got to go ahead and put, it's like a sandwich. You put praise and then criticism, and then praise. And I'm like, well, that seems inefficient.
Yeah.
And so again, so I was introduced to, personalities, and I had some of it, when I was in college. And but it's really started to take hold, and I'm like, oh my gracious. And so they call it the platinum rule. There's actually a book out there on that title, and it's treating other people the way they want to be treated, which is very different. So we all tend to think people like to be treated the way we like to be treated. No, actually, there's only 4.6% of the population that likes to be treated the way we do. So, anyways, and then I was introduced to Life Masteries, and they have all kinds of resources. And so we'll do a 17-second, personality assessment on you, Fritz. So, which of these four shapes would you tend to like the most? A cube, a pyramid, a wavy line, or a ball? A cube, a pyramid, a wavy line, or a ball?
Well, boy, that's
And that's what I would have guessed that you would have said.
you caught
So,
me, Mark. I was writing down that treat other people the way they want to be treated. I was writing that down and not looking at the screen.
gotcha. No worries. No worries.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, which of the four shapes would you tend to like the most? A cube, a pyramid, a wavy line, or a ball?
Well, I think I'd like the pyramid there.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then after that, the cube, the wavy line, or the ball?
Probably the wavy line.
And then after that, the cube or the ball?
Well, I think I'm going to go with the cube.
Gotcha. And then which of these four things would cause you the most frustration in any area of your life? Again, which of these four things would cause you most frustration in any area of your life? Out of order, out of control, boring or not fun, or conflict with others? Again, which would cause you most frustration personally, professionally? Out of order, out of control, boring or not fun, or conflict with others?
I'm assuming conflict with others would cause me the most frustration, but
Okay.
uh,
And then after that, out of order, out of control, or boring or not fun?
I'm going to say boring and not fun. Out of order and out of control seem like things that you can work on.
Gotcha. And then after that, out of order, out of control. Which of those two?
Out of order.
Gotcha. And Fritz, did you know that you have a very complex personality?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, your wife does, I'm guessing. Um,
She once told another business owner that she wishes sometimes she could be married to a normal person.
right? Like I said, she knows. So,
Yeah.
yeah, have her listen to this one. It'll be cute, her response. I mean, she'll just look at her response and she'll smile and giggle and she'll be like, yep, yepper. That's Brit. So, in the geometric psychology test, you test out as a driver expressive personality. And so, based on that test, one of your greatest strengths might be your drive, your assertiveness, you make things happen. And one of your weaknesses might be your drive, your assertiveness, you make things happen. Another strength you might have is your energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. A weakness might be your energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. You have a double portion of assertiveness, so you're assertive both with tasks and people. And so often, very successful leaders are going to be this personality. Tom Kuntz is this personality. A lot of leaders of large organizations, it's a very powerful personality because they get things done. They're great with people. People love them and they're driven and they see big picture stuff. And so that's that personality. Um, in the pain quadrant. So between the two personalities, there's 65,536 possible combinations. And you test out as one of the most complex of all of them. In the other test, in the pain quadrant test, you actually test out as an amiable, expressive personality. So one of your greatest strengths there is your concern, compassion for people. One of your weaknesses would be your concern, compassion for people. Your secondary is expressive again. And so you have a double portion of expressive. When I combine all of that together, one of your greatest strengths might be your flexibility, and one of your weaknesses might be your flexibility. Um, and and so this type of personality has a lot of inner conflict because they have a million ideas. They want to do them all fast, all perfect, and they want everybody to be happy. What could possibly go wrong with that situation? So I don't know how accurate that is, Fritz, but that's what it shows us.
Seems quite accurate. Well, I was accused of this again last night. When sometimes people will come and they want to borrow money, and I'll say yes before I even really
So
do any
that
research. And
so
my
that's
wife,
the yeah, that's the amiable.
see, I'm just like, well, I have what they need. They need what I have. If they don't pay it back, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Well, it actually is, Fritz, not for you, but for them.
Well,
So
I know that you sounding like my wife now. She says I'm enabling some of these people.
right, right, because it's not fixing them at the core,
Yeah.
and so they have a core issue. So it's actually and the amiable will do that. And they think like if you and I go on a walk, Fritz, in the woods, and we see a caterpillar that's turned into a butterfly breaking free of its cocoon. And we call this the cocoon butterfly principle. We have over 500 of these natural laws principles we've discovered over the last 30 years. They're amazing. So if you and I are really caring people, so we see this butterfly struggling and it's painful and to get free, and we so carefully cut open that cocoon because we're really caring and loving and nice people because we don't want the butterfly to go ahead and suffer. What happens to that butterfly, Fritz?
Well, it can't strengthen its wings. I think I've heard of this one. There's a process it's got to go through to remove what is it? Remove some of the
It's
fluids from its body as it's
it's
coming out.
actually I think it's filling the membranes of the wings. And so the struggle is what makes the fluid goes into the membrane so they can fly. So if we cut it open, we have the greatest intentions. And a lot of Baptists, how I was raised, they're like this. My wife is like this. She's very, very nice. Everybody likes her. Not because she tells them what they want to hear. Well, maybe it is because she tells them what they want to hear. I'm not really sure. But that butterfly can't fly. So it's either going to starve to death or it's going to get eaten. And people often are going to be in the same situation, similar situation, where we're actually enabling them, we're actually hurting them, and we don't even know it. So, in loaning money, I would definitely recommend that you get a system in place, for that. That they go through a system because your heart is not to hurt people, but you could be. Does that make sense?
It makes perfectly good sense, and it's the exact advice that has come from my wife multiple times. It's like, hey, make these guys talk to someone else, and then that someone else can come to you with a less how should I say it? More of an objective way of looking at things.
Right, right.
It's but there is a I always tell you, there is it's almost there's a sense of duty that goes with having money in your checkbook.
Well,
It's for a reason.
for sure. But when you look at the parable of the talents, the 5, 3, and 1, like the master, the one went ahead and buried it. And when you look at that, like I don't know, we don't know each other well enough, so I'm not sure how much to share with you. There's a new white paper. Like, Fritz, do you think you can be you think you can be a Christian and or go to heaven if you're lazy? Baptist would be like, oh yeah, absolutely. You know you're a sinner. You ask Christ into your life to be your Lord and Savior. You believe Christ Jesus died on the cross. Ask Him in. So then you do. And they're like, yeah, you can be lazy and go to heaven. I mean, but I don't know if you can. After I think, but when you look at the parable of the talents, like that's not just physical. That's not just material. Wealth. I mean, he said he casts them into outer darkness. And so the question is can you be lazy if you really have a personal relationship with Christ or with God? Like, can you really be lazy? Or if we're lazy, so there's a white paper I've been working on. I'd be nervous to send it to you. And so we might need to know each other a little bit more. So I have a weird sense of humor. My wife says that I'm an acquired taste. Um,
Okay.
you know, but it said the title of the white paper is Addicted to Lazy. And so the one personality is that. So when I combine it all together, so the driver, so you have a unique gifting and a unique personality. And so that when you talk about delegation, business owners training other people to take over, why why are we as business owners, or why are any of our managers, or why are any of our employees, why is anybody successful? It's based on how we think.
Okay. Keep
And so
going. That's interesting.
and so what we need, so I remember I used to go play basketball 3 times a week, and once I came home and I was in the driveway and there was a woman, and she was an author of a book, and she said, what's the number one responsibility that a parent has for a child? Then they went into a commercial break. I'm sitting like, come on, like, because I'm like, well, I can think of 100 things, but she said the number one thing that we as parents um, are responsible for in our children is to teach our children how to think. It's not what to think, it's how to think. It's how to think. And if we don't teach our children how to think, and I think that's the same thing as business owners, that same thing is true. It's like we need to teach our team members how to think. And you're doing that on this podcast because you're so hungry to learn. And a lot
Mark,
of time,
Mark,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna do a hard ride onto a little rabbit trail here.
Yeah.
I struggle with this one a little bit. Last night I've got teenage daughters, and for the record, I'll pick teenage sons over daughters, but I've got a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. My wife and I were out. Uh, we came home, supper was on the stove, and my wife looked into the pot and she said, "Oh, Emily," which is the 15-year-old, "you were supposed to put peppers and everything in here." Well, Emily had already left for her volleyball game. And the 13-year-old, she kind of, well, at least she made supper, even though, and this kind of went on. And later, my 13-year-old and I, we were folding laundry, and it was just the two of us. And I said something to her about, I said, "Dina, you just made that comment." I said, "That was not just some offhand comment. You meant something by that." She says, "Well, I did. Yeah, I guess you're right. It makes me angry, if mom complains about how Emily did things." And I said, "Well," I said, there's more as a parent." I said, "I think we're trying to teach you children how to, or prepare you for a successful life. And sometimes there's more to just doing something than just doing it. You also have to do it correctly
Right.
and follow instructions." And I said, "Emily didn't. Yes, it's very nice that she made supper before she left for her volleyball game. And we appreciate that. We don't want to just walk in the door and complain." But I said, "The fact of the matter is, she didn't do her chores right."
Right.
I said, "If my son, who's supposed to feed the chickens, if he says he chored the chickens and he gathered the eggs and he gave them water, but didn't do it right, didn't feed them, the things don't go all that well." And I said, "What is our duty? I said, "We're trying to teach you so that you can have a successful, happy life." And I said, "You're going to get to the point where the consequences of not following instructions are much greater than just an irritated mom."
Right.
And I said, she didn't say much. And I said, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, ponder that, because a week from now, I'm going to just ask you, have you thought about what we talked about?" Wasn't quite sure, but there is more to doing something than just doing it. You also have to do it correctly. But anyway, that came to my mind, and I've been struggling with my daughter, because she and her mom are, they'll butt heads a little bit, and I didn't think that
It's
comment was very nice. But
it's brutal. I have four daughters, three sons,
yeah,
and I'm telling you, and as a husband, as a father, like, you want to teach your children, your daughters in this situation, to respect their mother. But then sometimes you can see, at least I could see, my wife, she's kind of struggling too. It's like there's this competition. There's this coming of age, and it's like they can see, the flaws of their mother.
correct.
And it's like, and it's just hard. It's hard for the mom. It's hard for the daughter. It's really hard for the dads. I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
oh my goodness. But it's good parenting. It's good husbandry. It's good father in what you're doing. It's interesting because Tom and I and Peter Miles, he's a past board member of BMW, past president of Rolls Royce. And so those two guys, worldwide organizations. And so it's like, like, I've learned so much from them. But we were doing a course on leverage, and the title was The Magical Arts of Positive, emphasize positive motivation and manipulation. So we think motivation's good, but you can motivate somebody to do something bad, or manipulation's bad, but you can manipulate somebody to do good. And I don't know, it was three-quarters of the way through, and I showed up on one of the podcasts that we were recording, and for the course, and I said to Tom, he says, "You seem a little frustrated today." I said, "Oh, I am." And he's like, "What are you frustrated about?" I said, "It just irritates the living daylights out of me when I share something with people and they say, 'Oh, I get it,' and I know they don't. Like, I know they don't. And you can't, it's hard to tell people nicely, Well, actually, you don't get. I mean, you get a little tiny piece, but what I'm trying to teach you is something so much more. And so the 13-year-old probably, she's starting maybe to get interested in boys. And so it's not just doing things the right way. That's not, there's a right way and a wrong way to, for chickens and animals. That's the beauty of having animals, because you do it the wrong way, they die. Like it's
Correct.
like, like that one died because of you. So that's really good teaching, is just animals. But it's not just the right way, it's the way that the person who's in authority wants it done. And it might not even be the right way. There might be a better way, but they want it that way. And so it's helping her to see she's probably, Lord willing, God willing, she's going to have a husband. And he's going to want something done a different way than she's going to want it done. And how do they navigate? How do they navigate? So we're really preparing our daughters to be amazing wives and amazing mothers. We're really trying to train our boys to be amazing, fathers and amazing husbands. And so it's a whole, so we had that with our oldest daughter too, where, she's very analytic. And so the personalities, typically the firstborn, not always, but often the firstborn is going to be analytic. Second or middle children will be drivers or amiables, and third or lastborn will be expressive. What we do know is that God has a sense of humor, and whatever the first one is, the second one's different, third one's different, fourth one different. Like God, he has a sense of humor in teaching us parents that we don't know nearly as much as we think we do. Um, and so I said, yeah, I just don't get it. And Tom chuckled and he says, oh, that's pretty easy. I said, it is. He says, yeah, they're not internalizing things. And I could feel the energy. Like I could feel, oh my goodness, he's right. He's absolutely right. And I'm like, I got all excited. I'm like, that's exact. They're not getting it. They understand at a surface level what I'm saying, but they're not understanding the depth. And I said, so how do I get people to internalize things? He's like, oh, I don't know that. I'm like, really, Tom? Like, so I went to bed that night, and in the morning I woke up with this model, the internalization model. And maybe in another podcast we can go over it. So it's like a systematic way to help people around us to internalize things. So you actually use this model for yourself, Fritz. I've seen it, at least 5 parts of the model demonstrated today, but it's unconscious competence. So with unconscious competence, where we do something and we don't even know we're doing it, the reason it's so hard is because we don't know how to transfer that way of thinking, to our employees or our spouse or our children. And so the internalization model has helped me to be more intentional about transferring deeper things to the people around me, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
So yeah, it's pretty neat. Anything else that you wanted to cover today, Fritz?
Well, I kind of took us off the line of thinking we were on there, and I apologize for that, but I'm done.
All right. Well, we're going to finish up strong here, and you don't ever have to apologize. The rabbit trails, that's where a lot of the learning comes from. That's where that's where a lot of that's where the golden nuggets are. Like it's like, then that's what, like the podcast, like everything interconnects. Like often when I can't figure something out in one of my 9 businesses, I'll figure it out with my wife or children. Often when I can't figure something out with my wife or children, I'll figure it out in business. Like a lot of times people separate the two. They have everything in separate different things, but when we really look at it, everything's interconnected. And so we'll just have a thought. We might dig into this more, but Fritz brought up earlier, Philippians 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves. Look not every man unto his own things, but every man also unto the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which also is in Christ Jesus. So it's interesting because I didn't find out until I was 59 years old that my feelings mattered. My son and my brother both told me my feelings mattered. And I'm like, really? And so I did a little experiment and came up with the quantum feeling model. And so I think in today's society, I think feelings are facts. Like I have a feeling you don't like me, Dad. You don't love me. Okay, well, that's a feeling. And it's not that we ignore feelings. We do, we look at them. But just because I feel something, think something, or say something doesn't mean it's true. And so in feelings, it seems like there's three feelings that tend to permeate, and that's entitlement, self-righteousness, and victimhood. And they all connect into one another. And so what's the vaccine against entitlement? It's thankfulness. What's the vaccine against self-righteousness? It's humility. What's the vaccine against victimhood? It's taking ownership of things. And so, I'd love to, and I don't know, we'll see. I might go ahead and go into the original, what is this? The Hebrew, I think, and go into that. And what is strife and what is vainglory? What is loneliness, lowliness of mind? Like, what is that? So a lot of times in the Baptist, how I was raised, there was a lot of talk about humility, but it seemed like the hearts, like the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can know? What does that mean? like, 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 and you start doing all of these things. Look not every man unto his own things, but every man unto the things of others. And it's like, well, what does that mean? So these are things that I kind of get excited about. Like you can dig into them and really look at the original language, break that bad boy down and say, and then you go ahead and then apply it. And then you get other people around us. Like we can see, like the Bible says, get the splinter out of your own eye before you go ahead and get the mote out of somebody else's, the beam out of somebody else's eye. Most Christians kind of use that as leverage, where you're not supposed to go ahead and get or the beam out of your own eye, splinter out of somebody else's. People say you're not supposed to look at other people, but that's not what the passage is really teaching. When you look at the original and dig down into it, it's really teaching. It's commanding us to get the beam out of our own eyes so we can see clearly. And as husbands and fathers, we need to do that. As wives and mothers, we need to do that. As as leaders in companies, we need to do that. And there's a whole bunch of really cool materials that Life Masteries has, and then Christian Professional Network is another great nonprofit organization. They have some great stuff as well. Fritz, always enjoy this. This is always a blessing. I enjoyed it a great deal. Thanks so much for being our guest again today. If you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300. Outside the U.S., 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.